I'm about to grab an energy drink. This was not expected. Just landed in the airport, hadn't even showered. No, he subsequently officially endorsed the vice president. Bring up the tweet. Check it out. I'll be right back. All right, baby, I'm live streaming. Did a video. Let's see. All right, we're gonna read. I did a video about this, which, by the way, you should check out. I did a video about the president officially dropping out, and then subsequently he announced that he is not seeking re-election. Um, now, why the hell can't I find that tweet? I want to first start with Biden's letter. What's up, everybody? All right, here it is. We're going to start with this letter and then go to the official announcement of his endorsement of the vice president. He says, "My fellow Americans, over the past 3.5 years, we've made great progress as a nation. Today, America has the strongest economy in the world. We've made historic investments in rebuilding our nation, in lowering prescription drug prices for seniors, and in expanding affordable care to a record number of Americans. We've provided critically needed care to 1 million veterans exposed to toxic substances, passed the first gun safety law in 30 years, appointed the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court, and passed the most significant climate change legislation in the history of the world. America has been never better positioned to lead than we are today. I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together, we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We protected and preserved our democracy, and we've revitalized and strengthened our alliances throughout the world. It's been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week in more detail about my decision. For now, let me express my deepest gratitude to all those who have worked so hard to see me reelected. I want to thank Vice President Kamala Harris for being an extraordinary partner in all this work. And let me express my heartfelt appreciation to the American people for the for the faith and trust you have placed in me. I believe today what I always have, that there's nothing America can't do when we do it together. We just have to remember we are the United States of America." Now, he made that probably 30 minutes ago. I dropped a video about it just a few minutes ago. And I said in that video, yes, in the official letter, he did not officially endorse the vice president, but he made a point to basically go through all the great things that the administration accomplished. And then he made sure at the very end to call her out specifically by name and only her as somebody who helped make all these things possible. So I said in the video, it seemed to me that he was signaling that he was going to endorse her. And then probably 15 minutes later, after I'd already recorded my video and uploaded it, he officially came out and endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. So he says on Twitter, "My fellow Democrats, I've decided not to accept the nomination and focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and spend the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this." So we'll get into some other things first, but yes, it's official. President Biden is not seeking re-election. He will serve out the remainder of his term, which ends on January 20th, 2025. Okay, no matter who wins, Trump or the vice president. And he's not seeking re-election. This is huge. This is huge. Again, before we get into some reactions, because a lot of people have commented, let's see what people are saying in chat. I still support him. Yep. Okay, listen, again, we'll get into this. President Biden has been the most accomplished 4-year president probably since Lyndon Baines Johnson, arguably since FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And he accomplished infinitely more in 4 years than Donald Trump dreamed of doing. Okay. But as I've said before in previous videos, long before the debate, there are 2 roles that Biden must serve. He must be president, the incumbent president, and he also has to be candidate during a highly contentious election year. And it's possible to be good at one and not the other. I thought that this decision carried risks no matter what, right? He is the incumbent. He has the record. He has the name recognition. He has the fundraising. He has the ground game in terms of, in terms of staffers and canvassers and things like that. But on the other hand, he is and has been unpopular for years. And the race has been very stable. And there is some polling data, and I don't discount polling data, which indicates that people like the vice president or Governor Shapiro, Governor Whitmer, Secretary Buttigieg, others would perform as well or better than the president. So it was going to be a risk no matter what. I don't know how I feel about it. Like I said, this is so sudden. And I think we'll have to see more information. But yeah, this is huge. Damn, who will be her vice? Can they win? Democrats may have screwed America. No, listen, I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to say that Democrats have screwed anybody. I think that there were good faith concerns about the president's ability to win this race, not his ability to govern, not his record, but his ability to win the election, which again is a separate discipline. I don't think it's fair to say that Democrats screwed us. This is an important conversation. It was going to be a risk either way. I think what we did was incredibly brave. And I think what the president did here, right or wrong, and who knows, we don't know what will happen. Maybe hindsight's 2020 will regret that Joe Biden dropped out of the race, but this was a risky move made on evidence, like there is data to support his decision, and he put country ahead of his own ambitions by making this decision. Let's see. Trump just won the election. America wouldn't vote for a white woman in 2016. They won't vote for the black woman in 2024. I mean, listen, it's possible. It's possible that there's still enough vestiges of racism in this country and misogyny that when they combine, that might undermine the vice president. It's possible. But she also, again, has advantages over the president. Like, again, communicative ability, there's just no question. The vice president is an infinitely better communicator in 2024 than President Biden is. And she also gets to reap many of the same advantages. She also gets to claim the record. She also gets to claim the fundraising. And she is not seen as too old, whereas Joe Biden is. So I take your point. Again, that's why I say this is a risk no matter what. But it's it's arguably a risk worth making. In a fair world, Biden would be judged on the accomplishments, but he is and has been slipping in the polls from the debate performance. And listen, the president's polling, I mean, he was mostly behind Trump in most of the aggregate polling even prior to the debate. Now, I haven't seen the aggregates over the past few days, but until a couple of days ago, it was within the margin of error. So it was still possible for Biden to win the election, but the probability was shrinking. Damn, so many comments. Appreciate the comments. I was hoping to get to like a ton of them, but I'm going to zoom in more, by the way, because like I said, I wasn't expecting to go live. Just give me 1 second and then we'll look at some more reactions. All right. Are your phones blowing up? Because mine is. All right. We're going to look at some other people's reactions to all this. Let's see. All right. Mehdi Hassan, one of my favorite progressive commentators, but an outspoken critic of the president and somebody who's been publicly calling on him to drop out since the debate. Joe endorses Kamala. I can't keep up. Good. Dems need to unify now and fight Trump. Agreed. Mark Elias says, before the media gets rolling, let me be clear. The Democratic nominee for president will be on all 50 state ballots. There is no basis for any legal challenge, period. Now, let's focus on this for just a second, folks, because Mark Elias, he is one of the most effective quivers or arrows that we have in the proverbial quiver. He is a top election lawyer. He is amazing. He's beaten the Republicans time and time again in election-related lawsuits, even in unfriendly terrain in front of conservative judges. Damn it. He's not perfect by any stretch. It does sound like he has an infallible record, but he's really good. So what he's talking about is Speaker Mike Johnson and members of the Heritage Foundation have publicly said that they will try to legally challenge any attempt to replace Joe Biden on the ballots because Biden's name is on the ballots, right? Now, Mark Elias is saying, hey, don't freak out about that. He will be whoever, if it's Vice President Harris, if it's Gretchen Whitmer, if it's whoever the Democratic nominee is, they will be on all 50 state ballots. He's saying there's no way that will change. That fills me with some confidence because, quite frankly, given the dirty pool played by Republicans and right-wing judges, I expected that some of these lawsuits would have teeth, right? That the Republicans would act in bad faith. They would judge shop. You'd get them in front of a partisan judge like Aileen Cannon or Kazmarek, who was appointed by Donald Trump. This was the guy who, banned the abortion pill, or tried to, and then the Supreme Court struck it down. I wouldn't be surprised. And of course, this right-wing Supreme Court, if there are any legal challenges to to Kamala Harris's, replacement of Joe Biden or anybody's replacement of Joe Biden, and it makes its way up to the court, I wouldn't be surprised if the court acts in such a openly partisan way as to advantage the Republicans. But Mark Elias, an expert in election law, says, do not panic. So that's good. Let's see. Katie Fang, thank you for your dedication and integrity and service to the American people. Our country was better because of you. George Conway, former Trump-supporting Republican ex-husband of Kellyanne Conway, who herself is one of Donald Trump's most effective spin masters, and she's also an eldritch demon. George Conway says, Joe Biden is a patriot. He has selflessly served this nation with distinction for half a century and stepped forward to save it in 2020. We Americans again owe him our deepest thanks and respect for putting the country above all else again. Thank you, Mr. President. Jared Moskowitz, Congressman Moskowitz, says, I hereby endorse Kamala Harris. That's the tweet. Rachel Bidikofer, one of my favorite political commentators, she says, Joe Biden will go down in history as the man who chose to save America over himself. Harry Sisson talking about this. David Roberts, another one of my favorite political commentators, says, put respect on this man's name. Norm Eisen, former ambassador, he says, in one of the most stunning acts of patriotism in my lifetime and worst news possible for Trump, Biden is out. Ted Lieu, Democratic congressman, President Biden will go down as one of the best presidents of our great country. Joe Biden took a nation hurt by the pandemic and turned our country around, ushering in massive job growth, infrastructure, and clean energy and tech revolution. Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, guys, this is stunning. This is absolutely stunning. John Fetterman says, people pushed out an honorable man, loving father, and a great president before an absolute sleazeball like Menendez. Congratulations. I mean, listen, I will say just the sentiment, it's fair. It's a fair sentiment to say Bob Menendez, the Democratic senator from New Jersey who was convicted on corruption charges, convicted, not just prosecuted, convicted, folks, still has a seat in the United States Senate. He said publicly that he would probably resign, then apparently walked it back. And there's been no serious aggressive effort by Majority Leader Schumer to kick him out. Of course, maybe that takes time, but I take his point. President Biden is not corrupt, has been an objectively enormously successful and consequential president, and here he is leaving. Tommy Vitor of Pod Save America, again, one of my favorite commentators, although I know they've been getting a lot of flack lately. Joe Biden deserves enormous credit for his decades of service to this country, historic record of legislative success as president, and for putting the country's needs ahead of his own in this incredibly difficult moment. Now we got to get to work to elect Vice President Harris. Wow. Wow, folks. It's amazing, isn't it? Stunning stuff. Stunning stuff. Let's see here. Listen, I understand. Here's what I would say. I was agnostic about this decision. I really was. And I have from the beginning, and I would really encourage you all to as well. I would encourage you all to take an agnostic, sorry, agnostic approach to this. There was data to support either conclusion. Biden staying in, Biden dropping out. This was an informed, risky decision no matter what. What is more important than anything, is defeating Donald Trump and the Republicans, not just Trump, and the Republicans at the ballot box in November. I cannot stress this enough. That is more important than electing the first Black woman president. It's more important than electing or re-electing President Biden. It's more important than anything, is defeating this right-wing authoritarian cult of personality. Re-electing Joe Biden, as far as I'm concerned, was only important in as much as it was the best way to accomplish that goal. Joe Biden has been an objectively great president, and in a perfect world or in a better world, we would be able to reward such good performance with a second term. Unfortunately, that's not how the real world works. And so the way you should look at it is, if Joe Biden has become convinced that electing him or trying to elect him is an obstacle to defeating Trump, then you should enthusiastically support this decision, because beating Trump is more important than rewarding Joe Biden. Whoever the Democratic nominee is will be objectively better than Trump. And if it's Vice President Harris, I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that in my perfect world, or in a world where we just had a totally clean slate, that she would be my first pick. But then again, nor was Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden was not the person I voted for in the Democratic primary. I voted for Bernie Sanders. I would have voted for Pete Buttigieg. Biden was like third or fourth on my list. And look how great of a president he has become, in large part because he made this alliance with the more progressive flank of the Democratic Party. Back the candidate. If there is a candidate who is better poised to defeat Trump and the Republicans, back that candidate. We are not a cult. Do not let yourself be part of a cult. You can love and respect and admire the president if that's what you feel, but don't be what they call blue MAGA. Okay. Let's see. Comments. I'm disgusted about them forcing Biden to drop out, guilting him. I think he was disrespected, and so was the people who selected him. Listen, I understand why I can't imagine. Listen, if you run for president, you have to have an ego, right? There has to be some level of arrogance, right? Because you're saying, I want to be the most powerful person on earth, and I think that I singularly am best poised to be the most powerful person on earth. Like, there has to be, by definition, a degree of hubris there. And I agree. I feel like sometimes it probably crossed the line in the way that some people went about things. But at the end of the day, again, it's more important than anything, including showing respect to the president, is saving democracy by defeating the Republicans at the ballot box. They handed the presidency to Trump. No, I don't think so. There's data no matter what. This was always going to be a tight, close election for a number of reasons. The media grades Trump on a curve. We've talked about this. That's one of the central theses of my channel, Pondering Politics. Trump is graded on a curve, and so are Republicans in general. We know that, right? The election, or the American people, also have amnesia when it comes to Donald Trump, because it's been 4 years. Again, they grade him on a curve. He also has the full cult of the Republican Party behind him. They have right-wing media, which is more successful than left-wing media. Mainstream media grades him on a curve. Alternate media grades him on a curve. He has the backing of influential billionaires like Elon Musk and David Sachs, the sympathy of the likes of Mark Zuckerberg. He just survived an assassination attempt and gets to use that iconography and that symbology to his favor. This was always going to be a close election, and it will still be a close election. We just have to work our asses off. So let's see here. Alex Cole. Another one of my favorite political commentators. I look forward to debate with Kamala saying, I spent my year prosecuting criminals like you. This is funny. Anthony Michael Kreis pointing this out. I can't believe the GOP is running an old guy for president. So, folks, this is the other thing. Here's what one thing that I will insist on, or would rather I would encourage you to do. To those people that you know who are centrists, they're like, listen, I'm just not crazy about anybody in particular. Then have them put their money where their mouths are if they say that one of the reasons they were hesitant to back President Biden was because of his age. Well, the vice president's 59 years old. I don't think she's 60 yet, right? So Donald Trump is 78. He's 18 years her senior. He is the old guy. He will be the oldest president in history at the time of his election or inauguration if he wins the election. And we talked about the polling is clear on this. Poll after poll after poll after poll after poll shows anywhere from 50 to 65% of Americans have serious doubts about Donald Trump's ability to serve, that they don't think he's mentally fit. So now we should flip the script and be like, why is the Republican Party running this, senile old idiot for president when you have a career prosecutor, an excellent debater in the prime of her life? Let's see here. John Lovett from Pod Save America. Last few weeks were heated because we all understand the stakes and share the same goal. I don't think Trump and MAGA are ready for how united and energized we're about to be. I hope so. Sarah Longwell, Republican, she is a Republican pollster, one of the best in the business. She, again, is flipping the script. Donald Trump is the oldest nominee for president in American history. The Biden accomplishments guy, he is not taking it very well. The best thing I can do for you all now is to get off here. I will cast my vote for whoever the nominee is. I hope it's VP Harris, but I can't in good faith participate in or condone what's happened. So rather than stay here and undermine you all, I'm going to take my leave and let you go to work free of my interference or backstabbing. I mean, I suppose if you are so invested in Joe Biden personally that you can't, you're reacting to this with extreme anger, that yes, I suppose the most mature thing to do would be to just remove yourself temporarily from the situation so as to not undermine the effort. Robert Reich, former labor secretary under President Clinton, having led us out of the worst public health and economic crises in most of our out of the worst public health crisis and economic crises, thus crises, in most of our lives, President Biden should be remembered as one of our great leaders. Now he's passed the torch to Kamala Harris. We must unite behind her to defeat Trump. Our freedom and democracy depend on it. Let's hear what...
Either authoritarian fascism...
Can you all hear this?
Joe Biden has passed the torch to Kamala Harris. We now have a clear choice. Either authoritarian fascism embodied by Donald Trump, a convicted felon, twice impeached, someone who has orchestrated an attempted coup on the United States, or democracy, as represented by Kamala Harris. What that means for all of us is that we unite behind her and her candidacy. The stakes could not be higher. Joe Biden has passed the torch to...
Let's see. All right. Let's go back and see other reactions. Oh, this is really getting on my nerves. Why is this not doing this? Let's see. All right. We may have some guests popping in. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Josiah, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, how are you?
Doing great. I'm so coconut pilled right now. How you doing?
I'm okay. I'm kind of
Yeah.
agnostic about this. It hasn't really sunk in yet. As I was telling people, I think this was a decision that was risky no matter what. Staying with
Yeah.
Biden, going with somebody else. Their data to support it, risks associated with each.
For sure. No, 100%. And I think it's interesting that AOC made a bunch of comments about her hesitancies about Biden dropping out. Just I think it was like 2 days ago. Were
Yeah.
you aware? Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. So yeah, you're pretty agnostic. You don't really care either which way, if Biden's in the race or if Kamala is.
No, not I mean, listen, as I was explaining to chat before you jumped in, in a more rational world with a more rational electorate, and I can say it because I'm not running for anything. I can just say we as voters, we often make stupid decisions or make decisions for stupid reasons. There's no doubt about it. Rational actor theory of voting is really minimal. With an American people that was more invested in the stakes on a day-to-day basis, I think it would be understandable why you'd want to run Joe Biden. He's been a really good president, and there are two roles that a person has to fulfill. They have to be president when they're in the incumbent running for re-election. They also have to be candidate. With a more rational electorate, they would just say, well, listen, even if he's not the world's most charismatic speaker, what matters more is that he can do the job as president. Right.
And he's had an excellent track record with policy.
Precisely. So that role of candidate would be subordinate to your role of president. Right. And people just be like, yeah, okay, sure. He's not the most inspiring speaker. He's not a particularly gifted debater at this stage in the game, but because of his experience, because of his savvy, because his foreign policy expertise, because blah, 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 whatever it is, he's been a really good president. Ergo, I will enthusiastically vote for him in a second term.
Right.
Or whatever. Or even if you have serious beef with the president, perhaps because of Gaza, that, a lot of people take issue with that. And I understand that. I supported the uncommitted movement because I thought it was perfectly rational for people
in the primary.
Particularly in the primary, to say, listen, Mr. President, you're not entitled to my vote automatically. You make concessions to people all the times for your votes. This is the one where you need to make it to me in my block. You need to move on Gaza, or on your Gaza policy, rather. All these things make sense, but we don't live in a hyper-rational world where people make hyper-rational decisions. And at the same time, Biden also did screw up quite a bit as candidate, again, with that debate and other things as well. And even in his post-debate, kind of smoothing over, right, trying to address it. Some of his answers came off tone deaf and selfish. So he didn't help matters either. So it was a mixed bag. But the reason that I'm agnostic on this is because the most important thing is to defeat Donald Trump. And as I was explaining to chat before you jumped in, rewarding Biden with a second term at the end of the day only matters to me in as much as it's the best way to defeat Trump. And when it's no longer the best way to defeat Trump, then I think that we need to make a different decision, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah, 100%.
I think that there's data to support it either way.
For sure. And there's definitely some pros and cons. I think people who are just saying that this is strictly a better candidate aren't recognizing the pros of Biden, which is one, name recognition, which is how a lot of voters vote, unfortunately, not off of any like particular merits, but just the fact that they recognize the name. And Joe Biden has been a household name since at least 2008. And he's been a senator since he was like 29 or something. He was one of the youngest
29.
senator at the time. Yeah.
Yep. He's been a household name before there were households.
Exactly.
Because he's old, you see.
Yeah. And
so funny.
Got him. Yeah. And I think that sometimes people get surprised by how the median voter acts. Like when this got announced, I was at a little family shindig. And
oh my God.
I know I have family.
Were you hanging out with family?
I was. And then it just happened to end like right when I got home. Yeah. And they didn't even know who Kamala Harris was, like, or some of them didn't, right? Like most people know who the vice president is, but like everyone knew who Biden was, obviously. But like some people don't even remember at any given point of the day who the vice president is. So the fact that they're expected to vote for them was kind of a shock to some of them, people who don't really pay attention to a lot of politics. So I don't know. That's certainly an aspect. I also think that Obama was one of the most popular presidents of our lifetime, and the fact that Biden is always associated with Obama is a huge plus. But obviously the age is a huge factor, and some people are going to shift from Biden to Obama for that reason.
Yeah. So obviously the association with Obama, I think, only goes so far because obviously the popularity didn't transfer, right?
True.
I mean,
That's
Biden
fair.
has been a better president than Obama, but not as popular and certainly not as charismatic.
I agree.
But that's the other thing. That's why, for those of you who have followed this channel back when we were not at our 300,000 subscriber
Hell yeah.
count. By the way, thank you for all that, everybody, for your contributions to that. But back in 2023, before the president announced he was seeking re-election, I said my gut was I wish he wouldn't seek re-election, just because he did signal that he was going to be a transitional president. He had such a fucking awesome one-term record. It's like, how do you even top this?
Mhm.
And unfortunately, after he made, I would argue, the brave decision, again, risky and certainly messy decision, to withdraw from Afghanistan to follow basically the circumstances laid out for him by the Trump administration, to actually follow through on it and say, you know what, Donald Trump put me between a rock and a hard place here, but God damn it, I'm going to get us out of Afghanistan. After he made that decision, Republicans in the media pounced, and his approval just started to drop steadily. And that was 2021.
Mhm.
So I mean, when he came in office, he had an approval rating in like the mid 50s, right? Which, by the way,
I don't think he's
if
ever.
you're a centrist watching or if you're a conservative watching, just want to rub this in here. Yeah, you can talk about how Joe Biden is unpopular, and that's true. Donald Trump never
Hit
cracked
mid-50s.
50%.
Yeah.
Never cracked
Yeah.
50%. He was, from day one to the last day, always objectively in every situation an unpopular president, whereas Joe
Yeah.
Biden was not. So in 2023, before the president made his decision, it was like, I didn't see that changing, because here's the sad thing. This is where I get concerned about the future. I don't know if we'll ever have a president, unless he's just unapologetically ideologically progressive. I don't know if you will ever get another moderate president like that again, in terms of his personal moderation, who will govern progressively, because he might use Joe Biden as an example. Like, screw it. When I do progressive shit, I don't get rewarded for it. And this is the other thing, folks. I hate to say this, but again, I can say it because I'm not in politics. I just commentate. These people are people. Politicians are people. And when they do good shit, you have to praise them. You have to foist praise on them. And that's where I got to give Senator Sanders and Representative AOC all the kudos in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Was Joe Biden their ideal candidate? Hell no. Is Joe Biden their ideal candidate? Hell no.
Right.
Not just due to age, but also, again, because they have serious disagreements with him about Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what they're doing? They realize, like, oh shit, for all of our vast, fundamental, important differences that we probably slug it out in private about, and rightly so, we also got things under Biden that we would have never gotten from another, from a Dean Phillips or whatever, right?
No, yeah.
And so that's why they went all in on Biden, especially in the past several weeks, even after the debate.
No,
I think in large part because they were like, if we ever want somebody to do this again, when a president stands at a picket line or a president ends America's longest war, you go and you write love poetry to them and you express it publicly. And I understand that the people think that that's not how politics should work. A good job is its own reward. That's just not how people work.
Yeah.
When you vote for somebody and that person doesn't agree with you, but they do what you want anyway, you cheerlead, you praise in no uncertain terms. So you have commentators like Brianna Joy Gray, for example, or Crystal Ball. Biden could cure cancer, and they'd be like, why didn't he cure non-Hodgkin's lymphoma? Instead, it's like,
no, yeah.
Nah, you're just wrong. You say, God damn it, God Emperor Biden, why are you so fucking amazing? And you praise him accordingly. That's my fear about what comes next. Is it seems unlikely that we will elect a progressive president no matter what. And somebody like Vice President Harris might be thinking, well, maybe I play a little closer to the center than Biden did, because I saw that Biden, nor me, that we got the credit that was owed to us, quite frankly, from our progressive initiative. I don't know. That's my thought.
Yeah, no, it's valid. And although it's fair to say that, like, you know, you always have political commentators who will always shit on Biden at almost any chance that they're given, I think that the Democratic Party has been fairly unified, especially if you look at the counterparts. Like the Republican Party has kind of been fractioning a little bit more than I think the Democratic Party has. So I think I want to give the Democratic Party credit where credit is due. That I think a lot of the senators and Congress people have been championing Biden, and I think that they're going to stand by whoever the nominee is. But also, they're going to be stupid if it's not Harris. Oh no, Biden endorsed Harris, right?
He did. He
Did I
came
see that?
out subsequently. Yes, he subsequently came
Yeah.
out and endorsed the vice president.
Kamala.
Yeah.
Who do you think her running mate's going to be? Who are you feeling?
I'm not
Whitmer,
sure.
Buttigieg. There's a couple names being thrown around.
It's a good question. I'm genuinely not sure because, I mean, I think a lot of people would say conventional wisdom would dictate that you would want governors of states that Biden used to win, like Governor Evers of Wisconsin, who, by the way, is term limited. I think he's on his way out. Or Gretchen Whitmer, or somebody like that. Hey, I've got some economist who also wants to pop in too.
Hello. How's it going, my guy?
Hello, fellow libs.
I need you to
Fellow
crank
libs
up your
indeed.
mic, buddy. I'm cranking you up on my side, but I need you to, whatever you use to turn up your input.
You need me to crank my mic up?
Yes, I do.
It's a little
One
quiet.
second.
It
might
is
have
a
the
little,
wrong
and
mic.
by little, he is underselling it. It is. You might as well be talking through a tin can. I actually am not convinced I can hear you. I think I'm just reading lips.
Maybe if I turn down my noise cancellation and my auto, because I have it turned up like all the way on my little box.
I think it's a little bit better now. I don't know.
You just crank you up.
Besides
a
the
little bit.
expert.
Wouldn't go that far. Okay.
Are
now.
we?
Wait a minute. Shh. Talk now, kind of boy.
Hello, my name's Econo Boy. I have a quiet mic.
Yes, you do. Instead of Magic Mike, we're going to call you Quiet Mike. And instead of you stripping, it's you podcasting, but a muted NPR library voice. What's up, man?
Man, I'm doing all right, you know. Pour one out for Joey B.
Exactly.
All right, there. My mic is truly turned up all the fucking way. Is that better?
All right. That'll work. Yeah. All right. So we've been giving our thoughts. Kind of boy, what about you, buddy?
What do I think? I think that my prediction was surprisingly wrong. I was surprised at how quickly it seemed like Joe Biden's confidence melted away. It seemed like it only took a few days of doubt, and then he's like, you know what? I'm sick of this. I'm out. And I really do wonder what that internal logic was. Maybe he'll release a book or something at some point, and we'll really be able to dive into his internal logic. But yeah, because obviously a lot of people are confused. I mean, to me, it's not so confusing when you see like the campaign saying, we're in this race, we're going all the way to November. And then like the very next day, it's like, yep, I'm out. I'm not running anymore. Like, that's not super surprising, but it can be confusing.
No, yeah, I was about to say, like, I think that, you know, other people have commented on this too. We unfortunately go back to a point I was making earlier. We don't live in a particularly rational or forgiving electorate, certainly not for Democrats. So whereas perhaps the rational and honest thing would have been to say, hey, actually, I am carefully considering my options. He would have basically been exposing his belly to the electorate, and that would have caused mass panic and mass chaos and all sorts of things. So we live in a political ecosystem in which you have to fervently look the American people dead ass in the face and say, hell yeah, I'm running. Not a single freaking doubt in my mind until you're prepared to make that public decision. So,
yeah, it is. I will say it's a little interesting looking at the polling because it seems like Kamala is doing better than Biden was, but not by that much. And I'm just curious if because I know a lot of people who would vote Kamala easily and not Biden, but I don't know a lot of people who are so ride or die Biden that they wouldn't vote Kamala. Like that sounds like so like I would have to see that voter.
There's this there's this extremely small group. I'll say this. There's this extremely small group of people, okay, who seem to be of the position that, if you get rid of Biden, there's going to be like this huge number of Biden voters who just are going to sit out now because you took away their daddy Joey. And it's like, who are these people?
No,
who
for
are the
real.
people who are like,
I've had some people in my chat actually, again, and I understand like emotions are high. There are people out there who do really venerate the job that Joe Biden has done as president and do see it as a betrayal and also a creation of the media. So I get the sentiment, but I hope, number one, that these people are few in number, and number two, that those who do feel this way will come around to it.
Yeah, I do know Wick, who's friend of the channel, I guess. We all know Wick. He's a person who's ride or die. Yeah, thank you. He's ride or die Biden, and I don't know if he'll vote for Harris. I don't know. He was super disappointed that Biden dropped out.
Wick's not I would hope Wick's not as big of a dumbass as to like literally not vote for Harris. I'm sorry. Like,
I don't know.
If you don't vote for Harris, you're as much of a dumbass as any of these Jill Stein voters. Okay, like I'm just saying, like
I'm never gonna live this down.
It really is. Like, it's honestly a preposterous position to take that, like, oh, because Biden decided not to be the Democratic nominee. Like, we have to make it clear here. It was always his choice. It was always ultimately going to be his choice. Because he made that decision. Oh, I'm just gonna be stubborn and like not vote. It's like, guys, I thought we were worried about losing our democracy. Like, I thought that was the big thing here.
Right.
And you're just gonna decide not to take that seriously because now Biden's not the guy you can vote for. Like, this is ridiculous. But luckily, that's an extreme, as online as the online left is, as people criticize those guys. The group of people who are saying I'm not going to vote for Harris because Biden's not the candidate is the most online like white group of people that I've ever fucking heard in my life. Like, it's
speaking as 3 online white people.
Listen,
dude,
so
I'm less
again,
online than those people. Holy crap!
If you see chat, like
and
I said,
less white.
There are people in chat who are disagreeing here. Again,
drag them in. I don't know. I'd love to talk to them.
Yeah,
Fuck.
people are welcome if they ever want to hop in. I saw some people say you guys just don't understand, perhaps because you're not old, suggesting that they're part of the cohort, which has been disproportionately favoring Biden in these polls. And again, nothing that we're saying. I'll go one step further. Not only are none of us disagreeing with the fact that President Biden has been a very good president, I'm of the opinion that if you do disagree with that, you're stupid, or perhaps a liar, or perhaps both. I suppose they're not mutually exclusive. There is no good, reasonable argument if you compare his record, particularly to the alternatives, including Trump's. Biden's just been an objectively good record or a good president with respect to particularly domestic policy. But people recognizing that he is vulnerable as a candidate is not a betrayal of him, nor an indictment of his performance as president. Like, I have been making the case, like in my Live and Learn podcast with Econoboy and Hutch and Pisco, that yes, I recognize that much of this was a media creation, and there is data to support it. It's not a matter of opinion anymore. But there was also something there in terms of the substance of the question about his age that wasn't going to go away. And remember, there was going to be another debate in September, as early ballots were being cast out. So there was another opportunity to faceplant. And then what? So I don't like the fact that we play on an uneven terrain with an unforgiving media and an irrational electorate. And I think we do need to work hard to change and fix these things. But we don't have 3 months to do that. What we have to do is win in the landscape that we're currently living in. And that's spend the next 4 years changing the landscape, demanding better of our media, punishing the media with lack of subscriptions and things like that. Like, that's part of the reason why many people speculated that the New York Times finally released a why Donald Trump should drop out of the race op-ed, because they released one about Biden. And apparently there was like a mass boycott of New York Times subscriptions. And then a few weeks later, they dropped one for Trump. Good, motherfuckers. If you're nonpartisan media, then you have an obligation to grade these people on the same fucking standard. And if you don't, yes, as far as I'm concerned, I hope you lose subscriptions. I hope people, challenge you or whatever. If you are not, I'm a political commentator with a partisan bias. I make it well known. My goal is not to pretend that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are two equal candidates of two equal competence with two equal records. But if you're the New York Times, if you're the Associated Press, if you're Reuters, if you're CNN, and you're focusing more on what Biden had for breakfast than the fact that Donald Trump is an adjudicated rapist, then you are part of the problem, and the marketplace should punish you accordingly. So,
yeah, New York Times specifically has always had this weird relationship with the Biden administration, it feels like, because they had this weird, it goes back all the way to the 2020 primary when they had that weird double endorsement of Klobuchar and Warren. They're like, we can't quite decide. We're going to endorse Klobuchar and Warren for some reason. And then I think Biden kind of, I think there was some reporting that Biden kind of like gave them the cold shoulder, like he wasn't giving them interviews and giving them access and stuff like that, which I guess, I don't know. I mean, if you want to do that and if you're being petty about them not endorsing you, why not? And so then they've taken the, fuck Biden, we're going to be a little bit more harsh on him. But I don't know. It's like the New York Times, dude. Like your reader base is obviously pretty Democratic leaning, let's say, right? So if you treat Biden horribly, they're not going to be too happy with it, right? So,
right.
I don't know.
Just looking at comments here, some people are to the three people in chat who are endorsing RFK. We can get into his policies if you'd like, and I would love to. But also, I just want to say, if you vote for RFK, there is and I really do mean this percentage. There is a 0% chance that he will be president. There is a 0% chance that your vote will matter if you vote for RFK.
A vote for RFK is much like a vote in 2016 for Jill Stein.
Yeah, okay? And I'm the expert on that, baby. Yeah. I'm an expert.
So not to out Stacks here, but also to out Stacks here because I love doing it because fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Stacks voted for Jill Stein in 2016.
In 2016, I did.
Which history may turn back. Like we say that this is the most consequential election of our lifetime.
Valid.
It's true, but
2016 might be.
Historians may turn back and say actually it was 2016, and Stacks contributed to
just
the decay of America.
To be the most fair to myself. I was crazy in 2016. I was like a rabid leftist, but even then, if I were in a swing state, I would not vote for Jill Stein. I was in a solid red state. I was in Utah. I'm still in Utah, but I was in Utah. That shit ain't moving.
Hey, did you see
my Clinton vote? Don't mean nothing.
So I was like, voted for what's that weird guy's name? The egg-looking guy's name who ran in Utah.
Evan McMullen.
You could have voted for him. He could have won.
Yeah, true. He might have been able to win Utah. That's true.
Did you see that your governor, Spencer Cox, like almost had a panic attack coming out and publicly saying that he wouldn't vote for Donald Trump in the upcoming election, which took courage. Like that takes fortitude to do that when you're both running for re-election and you're a Republican sitting governor.
I low-key like Cox a lot, mostly just because he's the best I could ask for a deep red governor.
I like Cox too.
Obviously, I wouldn't prefer Cox to a lot of like Democratic governors, but like I don't know. He vetoed the trans bill because he like looked into it and he was like, "This is affecting like 3 people. Are we really?" And he put this heartfelt letter.
We don't pass legislation just to bully a marginalized
3 people.
Group. Yeah,
he like literally looked into it. He was like, "I think this is." Yeah, I'm not making up. I think it's 3 people, and he was like, "No, that's not how law should work."
Like Utah Mormon Republicans are like they're just built different than
they are
other national Republicans.
And this is
they have this
because
like Utah. I think Utah is the only Republican state to pass like environmental legislation because Mormons are like apocalyptic.
We're really
and like
we have great. We're really proud of our national parks here. So like that's something that I think we really care about. And I grew up Mormon. Like I have a lot of family who are never Trump Republican Mormons who will vote for Mitt Romney until the day we die. Like it's a very interesting segment. Not a lot of them have shifted into the Trump, the MAGA movement. A lot of them are still remaining firm that Donald Trump is a psychopath and we just need someone kind in the White House. So yeah, I don't know. My mom is like a never Trump Republican. She's a Nikki Haley fan really big right now, but she was on the Evan McMullen train and I think she's going to write in Mitt Romney this year. So we'll see.
Okay, so not to interrupt, but yes, I'm going to interrupt. Rachel Bidikofer, political scientist, says this is funny. Kamala Harris will go up against a former president who, even after nearly being shot in the head, no one likes. Dan McLaughlin from the National Review points out, I wonder how on earth you could locate a more presidential candidate on short notice who is even more unpopular than Donald Trump or Joe Biden. So again, depending on the polls that you look at, this was going to be a risky move no matter what. Kamala, the vice president, has consistently been less popular than Joe Biden, but I think that changed within the past few months. What were you going to say? kind of boy?
Yeah, her favorability rating is pretty low. But also, to be fair, a large part of that is because she's been tied to Joe Biden, right? And his
Sure.
favorability rating has been pretty low. And I think that one thing that people aren't thinking about as much is that, like, with a new presidential candidate also comes a new VP candidate as well,
Sure.
right? And it seems like by all accounts, JD Vance doesn't really move the needle in a positive direction for the Republicans, even though he's like a senator from Ohio. He seemed to have won that seat because Ohio is so partisan red at this point versus like actually being genuinely popular, because he underperformed in Ohio to a significant degree compared to Trump. And so, I think Kamala has the opportunity to pick somebody who could, just really add a lot of spice to the ticket. A lot of people are talking about Shapiro, Roy Cooper from North Carolina, Bashir. Those are the three names that seem to be circulating.
A lot of people in chat are suggesting Bernie, which is a great idea for someone who just dropped out because of age.
So hang on real quick. Couple of things. That's not the one I wanted to say. Kamala. Sorry, this one. Brian Walsh. Can someone please explain why she has to be the candidate? She doesn't have to, and she may not be, right? There's still going to be the convention process. The delegates that are bound to Biden. I mean, he even said explicitly weeks ago that, they were free to vote for whomever they want at the actual convention. I don't know if by law they're somehow transferred to Kamala Harris. She's not necessarily going to be the candidate. I would just say probabilistically, she is clearly the front runner. She is the vice president. She has been officially endorsed by the presumptive nominee. And also there's a fundraising advantage too. The $100 to $200 million that are in the Biden-Harris campaign slush fund, or whatever you want to call it, the funds that they've raised, those only stay with either Biden or Harris, and one of them has to be at the top of the ticket. So, people say, well, they could transfer that money to PACs. Easier said than done. There are also enormous regulations imposed on PACs that you'd have to get creative to circumvent. So it's possible that she won't be the nominee, but I would say probabilistically, for various reasons, she is most likely to be.
Yeah. I mean, delegates are people, right? And Joe Biden's endorsement does, by all accounts, carry a lot of water amongst Democratic delegates. And so it's just likely to be the case. I mean, unless Kamala is like a truly just disastrous candidate, that's one thing. And then another thing, there's some interesting reporting, which is pretty reasonable when you think about it, which is that a lot of major Democratic insiders who see themselves running for president one day, they don't necessarily see themselves running for president in this election, right?
Yeah.
Because they recognize the incredible risk of running in this election on such a short notice. I've heard a lot of people parrot this talking point from inside the Gavin Newsom camp of like, Gavin Newsom is 100% going to run for president one day, but he wants to do it right. He doesn't want to run on like 16 weeks notice against an internally relatively popular vice presidential candidate, and that's going to make him a lot of enemies come 4 years later when he might want to run again. So it's just probably, like, for all those reasons, it's just probably the case that Kamala is not going to get a serious challenger, and delegates are just going to line up behind Kamala. And that's not, again, like, when people like Wicks say this is super anti-democratic, like, she is Biden's running mate.
Yeah.
Like, she is endorsed by Biden. Like, Biden chose to drop out. He said, she's the person to replace me. If you support me, support her. I mean, it's just a very logical choice to go to Kamala after Biden drops out. So,
I mean, that's the function of the vice president, is if the president were to get impeached or to get retired or die, then the vice president steps up. So exactly.
President Biden, this is Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania. President Biden is a patriot, served our country honorably in the Senate as vice president, and is one of the most consequential presidents in modern history. President Biden has gotten an incredible amount done to move our country forward, defend our democracy, and protect real freedom. I am proud to work by his side, and I'm grateful for his leadership and his unwavering commitment to delivering for Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth that raised him.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, I think an interesting X factor here is all the court challenges with regards to potential ballot placement. I've heard a lot of stuff about that because I think that in some people's heads, the worst case scenario that they can imagine is like the Supreme Court basically saying you can't switch this out, or if you're going to run Kamala, it has to be a write-in ballot. And the thing about that, though, is that I actually wonder what the actual electoral consequences of that would be, because I could totally see a universe where the Supreme Court, like in some expedited case, says, "Oh yeah, because we love Trump and we're just Trump sycophants at this point. This is the MAGA court. We're going to go ahead and say that Biden can't be switched out on the ballot. If you're going to run Kamala Shapiro or whatever, you have to write him in." I could actually see a scenario where that actually causes more people to vote for Kamala and Shapiro. Like we'll just write her in,
right?
Because
there's
trying to take away our choice.
Yeah, but
there's
a
not insignificant portion of Trump's base who are just purely anti-establishment. So if they see such a partisan argument, I think
it would cause a lot of Democrats to come out and vote who might otherwise not
sure,
vote. Right,
sure.
So
sure.
Yeah.
I think that. Oh, well, hang on real quick.
Biden moment. Just I lost the train of thought.
No, I just saw something though that changed the. At this unprecedented juncture in American history, this is from Speaker Mike Johnson, we must be clear about what just happened. The Democrat Party just forced the Democrat nominee off the ballot just over 100 days before the election, having invalidated the votes of more than 14 million Americans who elected Joe Biden to be the Democratic nominee for president. The self-proclaimed party of democracy has proven the exact opposite. The party's prospects are no better now with Vice President Kamala Harris, who co-owns the disastrous policy failures of the Biden administration. A second in command and a complete inept border czar, Harris has been a gleeful accomplice, not only in the destruction of American sovereignty, security, and prosperity, but also in the largest political cover-up in U.S. history. She is known for as long as anyone of his incapacity to serve. Regardless of the chaos in the current White House, our adversaries around the globe should be reminded that the U.S. Congress, the U.S. military, and the American people are fully prepared and committed to defend our interests both at home and abroad. If Joe Biden is not fit to run for president, he is not fit to serve as president. He must resign the office immediately. November 5th cannot arrive soon enough. So a couple of things I just want to point out. Johnson has said that he will back efforts to the legal challenges that Econoboy was talking about. He mentioned that earlier today on one of the Sunday shows with Jake Tapper, I believe. And then Jake Tapper called him out for it. He's like, hey, listen, didn't you bitch ad infinitum about the 14th Amendment challenges, which came not from Democrats, but from Never Trump Republicans in Colorado and other places? Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, that's apples and oranges, Jake. So
it's apples and oranges because I want one of them and I don't want the other. So
precisely.
So my morals get to fluctuate based off of what's good for me.
Yeah, precisely. And that's why, again, I just want to say it is important to remember that there is no room in elected office for any Republican, as far as I'm concerned. They need to all lose election and re-election. Not a single one is worth your time if you're an American voter. None of them can be trusted with this level of power. But all that aside, President Biden isn't saying that he's not fit to run for president. He's saying that there are doubts about his fitness to run. You know, what he's saying is, I think I can run. It was my intention to serve, but clearly you all disagree. And so that's why I'm backing out. And there's no obligation for him to resign the presidency. But that's why I wanted to bring that up, is because somebody brought this to my attention.
Yeah, I'm curious if you want to go back to that tweet. What is he referring to when he says Kamala's cover up? Like, is that Burisma? Is that like
no? They're making the case that the media. They're making the case that the media and the Biden administration have been covering up.
His health.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, look, if the Republicans want to spend millions of, Republican donated dollars trying to kick off people from the ballot, then I don't think they're going to beat the anti-democracy allegations, especially when the Democrats can just say, look, we're just following the ordinary process. What do you expect us to do? Our nominee doesn't want to be the nominee anymore.
I genuinely don't know what's the Democratic path forward if Biden drops out. You know what I'm saying?
Are we supposed to exactly don't get me wrong, if we're after the convention, then it certainly it does look pretty bad, right? Because what are we supposed to do at that point? He's the official nominee. But it's like we're before the convention, right? If our nominee doesn't want to be the nominee, he drops out, well then the Democrats are supposed to replace him. We're not supposed to drag him kicking and screaming to be the Democratic nominee if he doesn't want to be. That's not anti-democratic. It's entirely democratic, obviously.
Cody Johnston of Some More News cracks me up. He's like, Kamala should pick Joe for her running mate out of respect. He's so funny.
Biden and Harris Just swap it. Harris Biden.
Mark Elias, I was going to get to this too, to Akana Boy's point. Mark Elias, who is one of the best election lawyers just in existence. He made the case earlier. He made this tweet. He says, before the media gets rolling, let me be clear. The Democratic nominee for president will be on all 50 state ballots. There is no basis for any legal challenge, period. So I like the fact that he's confident.
Yeah, that seems
But
confident.
to Akana Boy's point, and there again, I refuse to give Republicans the benefit of the doubt on this or charity. I think they will try to rat fuck us, and I don't trust a conservative Supreme Court not to also aid and abet the rat fuckery if they can. So to Akana Boy's point, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a legal challenge. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a legal challenge in front of a sympathetic judge, maybe like a Kazmarek out of Texas or an Aileen Cannon in Florida. You know, they rule it a certain way, and then this makes its way to the Supreme Court, and it should be shot down on an expedited basis, but the court takes its time because, like, even if they do the right thing, they'll do the right thing in such a way as to maximize Trump's advantages.
Well,
all that's entirely possible.
But Josiah, I think that where the complication comes in from the GOP, the reason I say this would be such an expensive prospect is because, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think federal district courts come into play until you get all the way up to the state level Supreme Courts, right? Because wouldn't it be the individual states that regulate who has ballot access on an individual state basis? Like, you couldn't just say, oh, I'm going to go to the sympathetic Texas judge and say the nominees declared ineligible on all these different ballots, because in theory, all the ballot access rules are different in every single state. You have to go through the state courts before you get to the federal courts, right?
I'm not sure.
This is why we need Pisco. Where is he? He's not doing anything today.
Pisco is probably trolling people on the internet right now. We need Mark Elias, who is an election
funny
law
because Rachel Bidikofer, she tweeted and retweeted herself 1 hour later.
You got to respect it.
She pulled a Pisco. Damn it. There's something else I was going to see here. I saw it in Andrew Weissman tweet.
Yeah. That's why I feel like the GOP strategy would be like challenging ballot access in basically all the swing states, and then assuming that the state Supreme Courts, which I can't imagine any of the state Supreme Courts actually saying, oh yeah, that's right, like the Democratic nominee can't be on the ballot. At that point, then it would go to the federal courts. Yeah, but
it's got to go through the state Supreme Court. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part. Yeah, that's the first hurdle. So this is what Donald Trump said in response. Crooked Joe Biden was not fit to run for president, certainly not fit to serve, and never was. He only attained the position president by lies, fake news, and not leaving his basement. Yada, yada, yada. So that's the unity candidate here. By the way,
all caps there. That's the unity. He didn't use all caps, so
true.
Making steps in the right direction, Josiah.
I do love that we can start pushing age as a huge factor in this election.
Yeah, but they won't. It's different. I'm telling you, it's just
I know it's different.
I agree we should. But again, that's where just the long-term project of breaking the asymmetry in the media has to be a primary long-term goal of ours, because in the short term, the very same people who said that Biden is too old will like, what? Who? About Trump. Now,
right.
I still think it's worth making and also appealing to polls because, again, the polls say anywhere from 50 to 65% of Americans, depending on the polls, think that Trump is not mentally fit to be president. And that's what I started to say before you jumped in, Hunter, was that, people are also saying that this is where the challenge would be to various centrists that we all know and love, who said they had reservations about voting for the Democrats because President Biden, they didn't believe was mentally fit to be president. Well, now you don't have to worry about that because it's Kamala Harris. Now, the question is, will they recant and say, actually, yes, it's a good point. So we are now going to vote Democrat because the question about mental fitness is no longer on the table.
Yep.
Will the centrists pivot and say, well, she's woke or whatever? Like,
right. DEI president.
Yeah,
that's
what they'll say.
That's the new slur.
One thing that has to be mentioned as well is that Trump, like, for all the gaffes that Biden did on the campaign trail, Trump's brain is clearly melting as well, right? Like, he has a lot of gaffes on the campaign trail. He loses his train of thought. That was actually, surprisingly enough, that was like the main message coming out of his hour and a half long RNC speech was like, man, this was just rambly and it didn't go
Sure.
anywhere. And it was like, what was he talking about? He was sweaty. Like, he just didn't seem totally all there. And so I think that there's actually a non-zero chance that there's a significant amount of coverage over the next several months with that. And what I'm really happy to find out about as well is that some of the reporting coming out of the Harris camp is her plan is to be an aggressive campaigner, to be on the ground all the time, giving speeches, going to state. So not being in her basement or whatever. And that is exactly what she needs to do.
Yeah,
she needs to be out there, because one thing that you point out, Josiah, is that Trump actually has not really done as many events as he used to do, probably because he's getting old. Really old. Like, he's old as shit too. So,
and again, Biden is still in office, so he gets to run the country. The vice president, she needs to be like, I mean, she's been like to North Carolina, which is a de facto battleground state, or was until the past few polls. She's been there multiple times. I mean, she's globetrotting as well. She should
give her as many coconuts as she needs.
Hell
yes, campaign.
Precisely.
Hell yes.
So let's see here. Weissman says Biden, much like George Washington, deciding not to run again, deserves so much credit for acting in the best interest of the country. Service first. Yes. I love the allusions, not illusions, allusions to America's greatest president, President Washington, for the Cincinnatus principle of turning away from power multiple times. I can't imagine how intoxicating that would have to be the sitting president, to have the opportunity to run for president again and to turn it away. President Clinton releases a statement. President Biden has capped his extraordinary career of service with a presidency that has lifted America out of an unprecedented pandemic, created millions of new jobs, rebuilt a battered economy, strengthened our democracy, and restored our standing in the world. By any measure, he has advanced our founders' charge to build a more perfect union and his own stated goal of restoring the soul of our nation. We join millions of Americans in thanking President Biden for all he's accomplished, standing up for America time and time again, with his North Star always being what's best for the country. We are honored to join the president in endorsing Vice President Harris, and will do whatever we can to support her. We've lived through many ups and downs, but nothing has made us more worried for our country than the threat posed by a second Trump term. He's promised to be a dictator on day one, and the recent ruling by his servile Supreme Court will only embolden him to further shred the Constitution. Now is the time to support Kamala Harris and fight with everything we've got to elect her. America's future depends on it. Now, of course, because President Clinton released this, Piers Morgan is going to have a new panel. President Clinton says that we have to fight with everything we've got to elect her. President Clinton needs to come down. What's that mean, Bill? Are you referring to a sniper rifle, Bill? What do you mean with everything you've got, Bill? God, I hate people.
Well, wait, but Piers, Marjorie Taylor Greene said the Democrats were the party of pedophiles. Well, I'm talking about the Democrats today. Josiah,
no, that's when he hits you. That's when he hits you with a, well, do you condemn Hamas? Right. That's the dialogue tree. If you corner him,
You know, the interesting thing about William Jefferson's statement there is that I think it does, because some people actually had in the back of their head, like, oh, but is there like an inkling of a chance that Hillary makes a comeback? I think that signals at the very least that Hillary is well and truly never going to be president.
100%.
She's truly given up on that possibility. So,
happy birthday to the. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go.
Liz
you were
Warren.
saying, go ahead. What?
No, just remember that tweet. Just happy birthday to the future president of the United States. She tweeted that like a month before the election.
She tweeted it to who?
She tweeted it just out.
To herself?
To herself. Birthday? It was her account, and it was a picture of herself as like a kid, and she's like, "Happy birthday to the future president of the United States."
Well, unfortunately, there were a sufficient number of Jill Stein voters who ruined it.
Yeah. I'm never gonna live this one down.
Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden's presidency has been transformational. He's accomplished more in the past 4 years to bring back jobs, stand up to big corporations, and build an economy that works for all of us than we've been able to get done in the past 40. He deserves full credit for beating Donald Trump in 2020, and his selfless decision today gives us our best shot at doing it again in 2024. While Trump tried to tear down our democracy to maintain his grip on power, Joe Biden willingly stepped aside in order to protect our democracy. President Biden's selfless action is a profound gift to the people of the United States, and it's on all of us not to waste it. I endorse Kamala Harris for president. She's a proven fighter who's been a national leader in safeguarding consumers and protecting access to abortion. As a former prosecutor, she can press a forceful case against allowing Donald Trump to regain the White House. Again, note that, clock that. Piers Morgan is salivating as we speak. We have many talented people in our party, but Vice President Harris is the person who was chosen by the voters to succeed Joe Biden. If needed, she can unite our party, take on Donald Trump, and win in November. What does
That's
it
a
mean
great comment. Great
about
statement.
pressing a forceful case?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty divisive rhetoric.
Yeah. For sure. I don't think she's referring to like a legal case, obviously. Like it seems just like an argumental like
I think it means more than that. Stacks.
Right.
I think so. I think there's obviously some sinister undercurrent there.
Exactly. AOC didn't make a comment.
She has not made a comment yet.
Interesting.
What about Bernard? What about
Bernie?
Bernard Sanders?
Let's start with his
former vice president of the United States under Kamala Harris.
Here we go. Joe Biden has served our country with honor and dignity. As the first president to ever walk a picket line with striking workers, he has been the most pro-working class president in modern American history. Thank you, Mr. President, for all you've done.
Pour one out for a real one, by the way. Like Joe Biden, probably, I would say easily, the greatest president of my lifetime. And it's going to be
11
sad to
years
see you
old.
go.
What are you talking about? I don't even know how you voted for Jill Stein.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I saw Jenk's video or his stream. I saw at least part of his stream that he released, and he actually said he didn't think that Biden was the most accomplished president of his lifetime. And I'm like,
wait, he said what? Who?
Yeah,
what did he
I was
say?
like,
no, I didn't hear you. What did he say?
He said that he didn't think that Biden was the most accomplished president in his lifetime, and I'm like, Jenk, you were born in 1970, like. Genuinely, like who would be better on the list of from 1970 to today? Like who would be better than Biden? Like
it's
oh my God.
Carter, Reagan, Clinton. Like there's no one who even comes close.
Yeah, I mean,
Gerald Ford. Like who is?
Yeah, like genuine question.
Who the hell?
Like who are you rating higher than Joey B? But I mean. I don't know. I mean, he said Biden was better than Obama, and it's like, okay, if you're already saying Biden's better than Obama, then
surely you think Obama was better than Clinton. Clinton, I imagine, was too centrist for you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the destruction of the welfare state, obviously. So
Obama's really the only contender, genuinely, for him or Biden. But I think it's so clearly like when you look at legislative action, it's not even close.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. I don't know, but TYT. I mean, they're going to be mad that Kamala is like the anointed one, and they're going to scream about that for the next 5 months or 3.5 months. So
the Congressional Black Caucus immediately has endorsed Vice President Harris. Joe Biden is the ultimate statesman. He's dedicated his entire career amid personal sacrifice and service to the values of democracy, civility, freedom, and opportunity. He is undoubtedly one of the most accomplished presidents in American history, a trailblazer on the issue of gun safety, a staunch advocate for civil rights, and a bipartisan lawmaker who has created millions of jobs across the country. Americans and democracy-loving people around the world owe Joe Biden a great deal of gratitude. The Congressional Black Caucus, PAC, joins President Biden in fully supporting Kamala Harris as our party's nominee. She's been instrumental in delivering the accomplishments of the past 3.5 years and has led on lowering maternal mortality rates, protecting reproductive freedoms, and ensuring economic opportunities for all. She will do an excellent job as president of the United States.
So someone in the chat says, I was going to say, someone in the chat says something, and it sucks that this idea is so pervasive. Says it can't be Whitmer the running mate because America can't handle 2 women being at the top of the ticket. And it's like, guys, I really disagree with this. Like, I know that you guys are speaking strategically. There's probably not a lot of sexists in chat saying this, not in this chat at the very least. But I really do disagree. Like, I think a Harris Whitmer ticket is worth serious consideration. Unfortunately, it will not get serious consideration because there are so many people in the inside of the Democratic Party that think this way. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, I've heard people say this, and I really don't think that would be a bad strategic choice to have a couple women on the top of the ticket. But
I think that sometimes people watch a couple too many like Daily Show clips of interviewing MAGA supporters who rail on Hillary Clinton because she obviously can't she can't be president because what if she gets a period? Like, I don't think that that's the median voter even close. I don't think that the average American feels this way, that 2 women can't run as president. In fact, I think a lot of people are going to be empowered by that kind of decision.
I think the Democratic Party could run 2 aliens from different planets, and I think they would still poll at 45%. Like, I just don't think 2 women would
But the
be
Republicans would want to
so
know,
crazy.
are they undocumented aliens? Probably
They
something
would
stupid like that.
necessarily be,
God.
if you think about it.
Yeah.
But
Well, not necessarily. That's an interesting. Could you be documented immigrant if you're born on a different planet? I don't know if the paperwork is there.
yeah, from the
It was supposed to be a joke
Orion's
making fun of
belt.
Republicans. You're thinking way too far into it, Stacks. You're like, actually,
Look,
it poses an interesting legal
America
question.
might not be
Yeah.
ready for an extraterrestrial president. I'll give chat that one. But when it comes to just a regular old human woman, I think we can wrap our heads around that prospect.
People are making a
but I
great
don't-
point.
you know,
People are making a
I mean,
great point into. Someone said that like people thought that the U.S. couldn't handle a black president either, and
yeah, I mean,
you know,
a lot of people.
he's one of our most popular presidents of all time. Not maybe of all time. I don't know. Of the last 50 years, of Chank's lifetime.
Of Jenks' lifetime. That's true. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. And again, unfortunately, will not receive serious consideration because there are so many people that think this. But yeah, I don't know. I think she's a decently strategic choice, if you ask me. You know, popular governor of a key swing state, Michigan, sort of the heart of the Rust Belt. So,
Yep.
I've decided, which is funny. So I was out of town since yesterday for a concert, and the whole time I was thinking to myself,
wait, when Josiah?
Yesterday.
No, like when did I ask?
When did you ask what?
Nice.
When did? Oh, were you?
Man,
oh,
you are not
oh.
enough around. You're
Wait a
so
minute.
old sometimes.
Yeah. So anyway, so what we were talking about was we lost a connection with the Boy.
For a second.
So now that he's been put in his place, and the whole time I was thinking, like, especially now that we're in again 3.5 months proximity to the election, it's really important to turn up in the swing states that Biden or the Democrats now just need to win. So Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, I think those are the ones that if we get all 3, we win. So I'll be buying like a mobile like content creation kit, and I'll probably be traveling more to like door knock and stuff like that. So I think that no matter what, no matter what the decision was, you know, this is something that has been said time and time again, and it bears repeating. If we turn out, we win. Period. Yeah. The anti-Trump coalition is just bigger than the Trump coalition. I made a post about this today that, you know, Donald Trump just cracked 40% approval rating for the first time in 4 years. And we really need to put this in perspective. Donald Trump has so many advantages. He is the luckiest sumbitch when it comes to politics ever, especially when you consider his enormous deficits, both morally and intellectually. The fact that he is as successful as he is just testament to sheer cosmic luck, right? He exists in a enormously advantageous media ecosystem. We've talked about how right-wing media, both in mainstream and alternate media, so Daily Wire to Fox News and everybody in between, they bend over backwards to accommodate him. Mainstream media is happy to grade him on a curve and to throw Democrats under the bus for the sake of clicks. The American electorate has short-term memory issues, which are truly staggering. People misunderstand time. They're more inclined to blame Biden for COVID and what happened in 2020, even though Trump was president. Biden's accomplishments and the things that have happened on his watch are not resonating. More Americans think that we're in a recession than not. More Americans think that there's been job loss and job growth, and that's not true. That crime is up when, in fact, it's down. All these things. And here's the other thing. He just got shot in the head. He just got shot in the head. And despite all of this, he is so unlikable that he can barely crack 40% approval rating, right? So that just goes to show that if we turn up, even if they turn up, they can maximize their voter base. They can maximize their turnout. If we get close to maximizing ours, they lose. There are more of us than them, to quote the greatest of the Star Wars films, The Rise of Skywalker.
I hate you so much.
And
it's legitimately.
And so we
get so exhausting.
We need to turn up. It doesn't matter if it's for Joe Biden, for the vice president, for whomever. We need to turn up. The stakes have not changed. Everything that was bad about Donald Trump remains bad prior to like the way it was an hour ago or a week ago or a year ago. And then the Supreme Court decision. I mean, if you guys follow this channel, you know, I bitch about the Supreme Court a lot, and rightly so. I alone in the world have had the correct sense of the Supreme Court. I will take a victory lap here because, again, I and I alone in the world have recognized the Supreme Court for what it is, the final boss of American democracy.
Right.
They have cut Trump a blank check. And as a Conaboy, I mean, I joke, I say I and I alone, but a Conaboy has actually been right there with me too. He's recognized this too, that we need aggressive change to the Supreme Court of the United States. And President Biden, ironically, has actually, in the past, 5 days, there were announcements that the Biden campaign was going to embrace it. I hope the vice president does as well. I actually think I am now convinced, I'm more convinced than ever, that this is something we should be campaigning on. That, hey, one of the things that we'll do if we win, and if you give us a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House, is we will impose changes on the Supreme Court of the United States. We will put them in their place. We will remind them that they are the weakest branch, that they don't call the shots. They are inferior to the Congress and to the president. We will impose ethics requirements on them. We will do all these things because right now, under the current paradigm, they are teeing up an untrammeled Trump presidency where he gets to do whatever he wants. So there is no margin for error in this. And I just think it's really, really important that all of us as individuals and as influencers, go there to these swing states and try to maximize turnout.
It's important to note as well that a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, Biden supporters or like Kamala supporters are not as enthusiastic about supporting them as Trump supporters are enthusiastic about supporting Trump," right? But you have to go a little bit deeper in your analysis, right? Because Democrats are actually much more engaged and much more sticky voters as of the last several election cycles than Republicans, right? So while on one hand you could say, well, isn't it bad that Democrats aren't like so fervently in favor of the person who's at the top of the ticket? Well, sure, in some like all else equal, in some intrinsic sense, of course, that's not a good thing. However, at the end of the day, if Democrats are more motivated to go out and vote, which seems to be the case, right? Because they're more motivated in this case to vote against Trump than they are to vote for their own candidate. Well, at the end of the day, that still translates into Democratic victories, right? And so, No Opinion, he recently had a guest post on his Substack called Don't Rock the Vote, where he makes the argument that actually high turnout seems to hurt Democrats at this point. Now, I don't necessarily agree with quite that framing, but what he's saying there is essentially that there's been a transition in basically whose supporters are more likely to vote on a consistent basis. For like 40 years or something like that, the story has been, well, Republicans vote more consistently than Democrats, and Democrats have to turn out all these young people in order to win elections. And we've seen that change a little bit. They talk about in this article how the more educated people, the polarization of more educated people has increased and increased over time, and more educated people are significantly more likely to vote on a consistent basis. And that's sort of one of the big bases of the Democratic Party at this point, is basically anybody with a college degree or, postgraduate education, stuff like that. And so, and that's kind of a nice place to be, because it's sort of like saying, well, the young people turnout is kind of the icing on top, right? Yeah. Like, hey, if we can get young people to turn out, we can win even more, right? So the sort of negative polarization has really benefited Democrats. And that's not like the Democrats doing, it's like Trump's the guy who's causing this to happen. Like, obviously if, I've said before, if Nikki Haley was the presidential candidate, I'd be extremely bearish on the Democrats' chances. But the Republicans keep nominating this freaking madman to be their candidate, so that's going to motivate a lot of people to turn out. And our mad men and women just aren't quite as mad. I mean, a lot of people compare like AOC to like MTG, but I'm sorry, but like AOC is just, she's not like the left-wing MTG. Like, she's not nearly as crazy or insane. And if AOC and MTG were the two candidates for president, I just can't imagine. I really just can't imagine like negative polarization against AOC being quite as big as MTG for that reason. So,
well, see, I guess we'll look to some comments here and then wrap it up. Since again, the whole purpose of this was just to react in real time to the president's decision.
What a last couple of weeks. We've had the horrible presidential debate. Trump gets shot in the ear, and the RNC, and now Joey B is stepping aside, ending a 50-year-long political career. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. We live in historic times.
Yeah.
Also the Supreme Court decision. Can't forget about that. The Supreme Court says that
the immunity, like which one? Immunity?
Yeah, presidents are in fact God emperors.
Yeah.
Jody Bristow, Pondering Politics, do you think Harris can bring in some fence-sitting independents and Republicans? I think those who were primarily concerned by the president's age, yes. I think that solves the issue. I mean, I'm not psychic. I take the point, but again, before either of these two guests popped on, I did take the point. I do think that there are enough vestiges of racism and misogyny in this country that it could complicate matters. I could see a cohort of anti-Trump Republicans who are still nonetheless sufficiently wary of a black woman president, as disgusting as that is. But at the end of the day, this is precisely why I said I was agnostic on the decision, because their data to support Biden staying in, their data to run Harris. And there is no ideal solution here, and there's no risk-free path. And I think it's just too soon right now. I mean, the Democrats have been polling Harris for the past at least week, if not 2 weeks, to see, clearly they were thinking, okay, if not Biden, then it's probably going to have to be Harris. What does the polling look like for her? And I imagine the president also factored in all these decisions when he made the announcement to drop out and to endorse the vice president. So I would say at the end of the day, what they decided is there was a greater risk in Biden staying in than not. And there's a greater risk in not endorsing Harris than endorsing her. So I think that's why they made those decisions. The fact that he did doesn't make me feel bad about them. Like, it makes me think that there's some serious thought to all the things that all the people are asking questions about.
Just on an anecdotal note,
Sure.
my mom is never Trump Republican, who hated Joe Biden and was going to vote third party. But I was just talking to her like I don't know, an hour ago, and she was saying like I think I could vote for Kamala. Fully anecdotal. Like, I don't know how much she represents the median voter, but
Well,
something
we have to
worth
question.
considering.
We have to question some things about your lovely mother if she raised a son who voted for Jill Stein.
Facts.
Factium.
Nice.
What do you think about Kinzinger as a vice president as a conservative Democrat? You get the old school Republican. No, yeah. So listen, and I do say this. I understand the thought process. I do get it. Obviously, Econoboy and Stacks can weigh in, but I'll tell you, I think that there is no. I think this idea that the election would somehow be better served if we have a Republican running. Republicans hate anti-Trump Republicans. And those who don't hate anti-Trump Republicans are probably going to vote for the Democrat anyway. Or I don't think.
Did you see Aaron Sorkin's comment?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I love the West Wing. I know a lot of people shit talk the West Wing. I love the first 4 seasons of the West Wing.
Yeah,
5 was and then the last 2 not great. But
well, I don't think Aaron Sorkin was in the last 3. So it sounds like you like Aaron Sorkin seasons.
Yeah, but that's why I was kind of stunned by this. I'm like, oh, it's almost like the 2 showrunners who took over after you left the West Wing wrote this fucking op-ed under your name because this is the dumbest shit.
Aaron Sorkin, just for the audience, he said that the Democrats should elect Mitt Romney. Should nominate Mitt Romney. Yeah, which is
ridiculous.
That's a thought.
I said that next week he's going to have a follow-up which says, and actually to take it one further, as a sign of national unity and patriotism, every Democratic elected official should just resign from office and endorse their Democratic or their Republican replacements.
Yeah, just nominate Donald Trump while we're at it.
Yeah,
honestly, you really want to just unify the 2 parties together.
Listen, if you shows unify and defeat Donald Trump, you drop out and you endorse Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Nothing defeats an opponent like choosing not to fight them. Much like how Luke Skywalker defeated the Emperor by tossing away his lightsaber at the end of Return of the Jedi.
That's what Democrats needed.
And that's actually right where the movie ended, when the Emperor realized, oh my gosh, my opponent unilaterally disarming in front of me actually speaks to game theory, and maybe I should reward it with...
I hate you're using this example, because that's literally exactly what happened. Like, that's what Darth Vader does do. He goes, wait, that does change my mind. And now I'm gonna go on the other side.
I'm actually glad we're having this conversation. No, because actually it's my point. What did Luke Skywalker throw at Econoboy? Are you a Star Wars fan?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Great. I'm glad we're talking about the good things, the important things.
watch Return of the Jedi, and the lesson you take from that is that what Jedi should do is throw away their lightsaber in the face of the Sith. You're out of your effing
No,
mind.
it depends. It depends. Luke cares deeply about his father and recognizes that there's good in him, and that defeating him is not necessary because you can transform him. But obviously, he feels differently about people that he doesn't see the good in. For example, the Emperor, which he you know what I'm saying. And obviously, the Jedi. It depends if you see the good in the enemy and are able to transform them.
Why
If
didn't
you
he attack
cannot,
the Emperor? No. You misunderstand.
Okay.
What Luke did was a beautiful act of stupidity. Okay, that people.
I hate
that
you
people.
sometimes
No,
so
listen
much.
to me. Listen to
Like
me.
the
Listen to me.
single greatest moment of cinema history.
Luke should have gutted Darth Vader. I agree.
No, I'm not saying. Listen, no.
That's
No
what I'm
one's saying that he had to strike. Vader was disarmed and on his ass. Luke could have attacked the Emperor, and instead he didn't. But here's the bottom line: the reason that Luke didn't attack the Emperor
Bring it back
because
home.
Luke is part of an energy field that, if you act in anger, increases the probability that you become a space Nazi. It's like space magic crack cocaine. That's how the dark side works. The entire point of Return of the Jedi, the Emperor and Luke hadn't met until Luke shows up on the Death Star. The Emperor is convinced, I just need 10 minutes with this kid and piss him off, and then I have an eternal dark side slave.
Josiah, genuinely?
Wait a minute. That's how the Force works. We've talked about this before. If Han Solo, Solo showed up to the Death Star, he could have popped Palpatine just like he did Greedo, and the Ewoks would still be singing their joyous songs at the end. The only reason that Luke had to make the decision that he made is because if he acted in anger, there was a risk he would become his father. It was a unique threat to him. But you know what happened when he threw his lightsaber away? He was nearly killed, and he would have died had Vader not acted in. You know what Vader did too? How did Vader defeat the Emperor?
He threw him over a ledge into a pit, and he exploded.
No, wait a minute. I need you to tell Stax that. I think it was Stax things. I think what Stax thinks is that what Vader did was reason with the Emperor. And the Emperor was like, you know what?
I genuinely hate that you look at media with like zero form of analysis. And you're like, I'm just going to take it as a sign. Like it doesn't, you can't transpose the morals from the show into yourself. You just take it on its own terms. You know what I'm? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, it's so interesting that
I lack media analysis.
Yes.
You think that what Luke Skywalker did is applicable to real world politics, and this is how this is
of course that I watch media and go about. This is going to influence how I see the world. Of course, that's what's going to happen.
No, and you take the wrong lessons if you watch Return of the Jedi and say we should be more like Luke Skywalker.
Look,
Luke is one of the greatest.
One of the greatest clips in all of presidential politics history was Jeb Bush in 2016. He was asked, "Would you kill baby Hitler?" And he said, quote, "Hell yeah, I would kill baby Hitler." Okay,
that's the kind of energy we need.
Meanwhile, Stack says, "No, I would try to logic Hitler out of being Hitler. Sometimes people need throwing over a ledge into an explodey hole."
Of course, I agree. And sometimes, if you see the good in people, you should say, "Oh, well, let me talk to this person, and maybe they can change."
Yeah. Now, I will say really quick to the original point. I think the U.S. Senate election in Maryland is an excellent test case for this, where you have like an extremely centrist Republican, Larry Hogan, running against basically a standard Democrat. And that's actually a 50-50 race at this point because he's such a popular governor. And a lot of people are of the position that, well, you know, Larry Hogan's actually one of the good Republicans. Look, we only like good Republicans when the only other option is a crazy Republican. That's 100%. Why we like Mitt Romney. That's 100%. Why we like Lisa Murkowski. That's why we like Susan Collins. Liberal Republicans are not better than any Democrat.
Agreed.
Any Democrat is better than Larry Hogan. Okay,
God,
any one of them.
Oh, do you love? Okay. Do you love those strictly partisan terms? I love.
No, for sure, because then someone would go. Okay, but what if Hitler was a Democrat? And my argument would be Hitler would run as a Republican. That's my.
Hitler would run as a Republican. No, yeah, that's the thing. Like Larry Hogan, like how would he? You know, he would vote for Mitch McConnell to be the majority leader. He would vote for anti-abortion judicial candidates. He would probably be a real pain in the ass when it comes to passing things like a $15 minimum wage, public option, all these kind of things. Like liberal, like Republican who doesn't like Trump is not better than Democrat with a Democratic platform who doesn't
Agreed.
like Trump. Like, we still vote for the platform.
No, yeah.
Right?
Even if
and
it's
so
Sinema
really,
versus Romney, which is like I think the worst Democrat versus the best Republican. I don't know. I'm you might disagree.
She's an independent at this point, so I don't know.
True,
but
true.
I was gonna say that with the person who suggested Kinzinger as the vice president, that's kind of the logic that I'm using. Is like Kinzinger, whilst he is like not an evil Republican who wants to overthrow the Republic, sure, he's still a Tea Party Republican who would vote to dismantle the welfare state and to vote for right-wing judicial nominees and all these other things that we think would be bad. So
it's crazy how it's crazy that we're like, okay, well, at least he believes in democracy. At least we think we'll give a peaceful
that is the bar.
of power.
To be fair, again, Kinzinger
Right.
better than like most Republicans. Don't get me wrong. But again, if in this case it's just Kamala's choice on who her vice presidential candidate is, like there's literally no Republican that would be better than basically any Democrat. I mean, there's maybe some edge cases like, I don't know, would you rather Mitt Romney or like Bob Menendez or something? And it's like, okay, I guess, Mitt Romney would be better, but that's not really the choice, right? It's like you can pick any of the good
if I had to get one's votes, like if the reason that I would prefer Mitt Romney, did we lose a Convoy?
He did this a little earlier. He like flickered in and out. There he is.
You might need to set your hey, just FYI, because you and I have the same.
I was
camera.
giving my wife a kissy. Okay, I had to stop my camera for that.
We saw the whole thing, and by the way, I'm just gonna say, same thing I tell Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
She must have lost a bet. That's all I'm saying.
No, for real.
Yeah, she did.
She's clearly the brains behind the operation.
Yeah. My wife's smarter than me. I make zero apologies about that. 100%.
Yeah, she also has a better personality than you two.
I agree. Why would I not defend my wife about 100%?
By the way,
Josiah's girlfriend can beat him.
She's doing great. She is 7 months pregnant, so she is not having a good time at any point in the day.
And she also lives with you. That would
exactly
to a bad time, I feel like. And yes, my girlfriend probably can beat me in an arm wrestling match and a running match, a dance off, whatever. She's basically she's just superior. So.
As much as I love my wife, I can very easily beat her in an arm wrestling contest.
Did your wife vote for Jill Stein in 2016?
No, but she did. She was a Republican until pretty recently, not pretty recent, like 6-7 years ago, and 100%. She like knocked doors for Mitt Romney.
my wife was a Republican pretty recently, 7 years ago.
No,
she was 30% younger than she is now.
Sure, but she was like 22 years old and a firm Republican.
Wow,
that's pretty cringe.
At least she had the courage of her convictions. You were a leftist who voted for.
No, valid. Like she was involved in she did phone calls for Mitt Romney, and she worked on his campaign for quite a bit.
Yeah,
but yeah.
So listen, I guess we'll say in summation, we don't know. Obviously, we don't know who the vice presidential running mate will be. I guess we'll do this. Stacks, who are your three choices if you had it your way?
Hold on, are these strategic choices?
Yeah, I know that's a great question.
Ideal, like if we could just pick someone.
No, you pick and provide your rationale. Obviously, they have to be alive, right? They have to be viable.
You can't pick Abraham Lincoln.
I think I like not to just be on the Pete train because he's Department of Transportation. I love Pete. I don't think he's the right choice to win the election. I don't think that he's a great nominee, but man, I find him really compelling. I think that he's got really great policies. I think that he's done wonders at the Department of Transportation. I like his politics. I think he's a great speaker. I like his appeal. I would say, I don't know, not Newsom. Newsom is not in my top three. Maybe Whitmer is a fine choice. And who else is being considered right now?
We don't know.
Sure.
Some
people are saying Shapiro. Yeah.
Shapiro, Cooper, and Bashir seem to be consistently the short list.
Are those your three choices?
My three choices, I would say. So that list tells me that essentially the choice is purely strategic.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, probably how it should be. And it's It is honestly a really difficult choice amongst those three. I think all three of them are absolutely excellent choices. I mean, that's one thing that I think Biden getting replaced kind of shows that the Democrats really do have a great depth chart. There's a ton of good Democrats who can be brought into the national spotlight. I mean, seriously, like there's so many good Democratic governors, so many good Democratic senators, so many good members of the House. But anyway, I would say that those three would probably be my top three. I said in a video that Bashir was my dark horse for VP pick because he's really an incredibly talented politician, and being such a popular governor of red state is obviously quite, that's pretty interesting.
Right.
And so I think that it's between Shapiro and Bashir, if you ask me. And in terms of who I would go with, I am more familiar with Bashir, so I'll lean towards him. But if I really did an in-depth look at it, I would probably just pick who I thought would be the stronger speaker. I think that I'd probably lean towards Bashir because he has a longer and more successful and tested record than Shapiro, and so I'd probably lean towards Bashir. And so I think a Kamala Bashir ticket would probably be my number one choice. But they're all very solid.
Everyone in the comments are saying Jon Stewart. How do we feel about that, huh? Econo Boy, make sense of that one.
And that's like a meme pick, obviously. But
no, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think.
But Donald Trump was a meme pick too. To be fair,
we talked about Stewart being a meme pick, but actually, I think I'm not saying for vice president, but I do think there's. I'm not gonna lie. I have been partial to Jon Stewart running for president since 2022.
Sure,
I do mean it.
I mean, I don't think he'd be a bad candidate. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't think. Number one, he's kind of like Michelle Obama, where like he'd probably be a relatively successful candidate, but he just appears to have shown literally no interest in actually doing it.
Right.
Like there was a perfect opportunity for him. Open U.S. Senate seat in New Jersey. He would have been a great candidate for that, but he just decided not to run for it. And so I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting to think about. It's kind of like Bernie. Like it's an interesting thing to think about, but it's just probably just not going to happen.
For sure.
So
yeah,
maybe Jon Stewart for press secretary. Make it fun. Why not?
There we go.
Well,
that'd be good.
Folks, I appreciate this. Obviously, we will.
Wait, you didn't answer the question, Josiah.
Oh yeah, who's your three?
VP pick.
Whitmer is one of them. Shapiro's the second one. And I'm torn on the third one. Not Newsom, probably not even Bashir. Yes, he was popular as a Democratic governor in a red state. I lived in Kentucky, and he was really good. Just he has lower name recognition than any of the ones that we just talked about. He's a relatively podunk governor in terms of like public profile. I'm not sure what demographics he would win over that the vice president doesn't already bring. Part of me thinks maybe J.B. Pritzker just because he's a billionaire, but I don't know. I mean, right now, Democrats are at a colossal fundraising disadvantage, even with the money at the Biden-Harris disposal. Trump's caught up. He has $45 million a month pledged from Elon Musk, the support of these tech bro douchebag billionaires.
The night is darkest just before the dawn.
Exactly. You ever watch The Dark
Knight? Is that actually true? I got thinking about that. Yeah, I was about to say, like, how is that possible?
No, of course that's not.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor,
there's a normal curve of darkness, and then when you hit peak darkness,
But that's not just
right
before.
But the dawn is at like 5 a.m.
Don't try to look into this
I'm just saying,
analogy.
The metaphor never worked for me. It's like fighting fire.
I agree.
Fire.
I
All
agree.
you get is more fire. I don't understand. Like
I've never
see a
accidentally
firefighter
thrown
take
out a baby either, but I
flamethrower.
still understand the metaphor.
You never see a firefighter bring a flamethrower to put out a bit. I mean, I'm just saying.
I low key agree with this.
That's because they're woke.
I will say some people have said
song.
Jamie Raskin. I love Congressman Raskin. Now is not his time. I eventually want him to run for president too.
He's just not a strategic choice. Yeah.
No, but
I do love the like. I feel like a lot of people are just like, here are people we've heard of. You know what I'm saying when they talk about like VP
Taylor
nominees?
Swift.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, look at the Republican VP. I mean,
valid.
You're going to start out with 30 people. And then you're going to whittle it. I think that the difference here is that there's such a short time frame. I just think that, like, that's part of the reason why I think that the list that we see is the purely strategic list. It's like, look, we don't have a lot of time to like form a close personal relationship here. We just kind of have to go with somebody that we, have a good first impression on, and just kind of hope that it works out. And so, yeah, I think that's why you're seeing the people that you're seeing. And so I think Cooper Bashir Shapiro is probably the best one. But anyway, so you said, oh yeah, Josiah. So you said Whitmer, you said Shapiro,
Whitmer,
and then your
Shapiro,
third
and
one.
I genuinely don't know who my third one would be. I'm struggling with that one. It wouldn't be Shapiro.
And these are strategic picks, or you're just like,
yeah.
I'm just picking who I'd like the best?
No, these are strategic picks.
Someone
Because
said
I'm just
firefighters do
I'm just
use
thinking of
flamethrowers to fight
governors in
fires.
these crucial swing states that Biden has to win. So part of me also thinks maybe Evers, Governor Tony Evers in Wisconsin, because I think he's on the end of his second term. So I don't know.
He's pretty boring though.
No, yeah, for sure. Especially when we're looking at like meme picks. Like it is interesting looking at the Republican ticket and looking at, you know, Donald Trump, who is like head of the Apprentice, and JD Vance, whose notable political accomplishments is that he wrote a book and was a senator for like less than a term.
Wrote a book about Meemaw.
Yeah, exactly. I still haven't. I should probably watch it sometime. I don't know how bad it is. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews.
Nikki Haley, BP pick
for
Unity.
Well, folks, listen, we're wrapping up. We're done. I appreciate you popping in again as we learn more information, and I'm sure we'll all have content about it. You can find Econoboy on youtube.com/@Econoboy. You can find Staxiums, youtube.com/@Staxiums. You should definitely check them out, like and subscribe. Thank you guys very much, and we'll